Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio, and today is Monday, August 30th, 2021. As most of you know, if not all of you, I took a little break from the matters at hand because, well, long story short, it was really starting to get to me. It's really a lot to take in. It's a lot to, process, and not only that, but just try to keep up with the whole thing in general, so I had to take a step back. Sort of just, take a look at it from an eagle eye view and take a breather, and, well, I'm ready to get back into it now, so works for me. I am planning a live stream for some time this week. It'll probably be later in the week, probably like Friday, maybe, probably Friday, because I'm going to have to cover a lot of things before then. Okay, this first one, this is the one that kind of affected me the most. This really aggravated me. And I've seen people talking about it on social media, people talking about it just out in day-to-day, people at work. And a common response to this is, oh, that's in Chicago. They do things like that in Chicago. And it's the same as, oh, that's out in California, or oh, that's in New York. And I always say, if it happens in one place, especially if it happens in the United States, it will happen in all states. Same as when something happens in Canada or Britain, it happens here shortly after they attempt it. This is serious. This is something that they have been wanting to do for a while. Just total control, be able to come in and just take your kid for nothing, literally for nothing, and that's what this is right here. Cook County judge strips mother of parental rights because she is not marked. Wow. This should have had every single freedom-loving, real American in the streets. This alone. This should have made all other movements look like child's play. This should have been a 40 million man march, 50 million man march. A judge in Chicago has reversed his decision, barring an unvied mom from seeing her son, and will allow her to see him after all, which is good. A Chicago mother says Cook County judge has taken away her parental rights after learning that she is not marked against C-19. In what all parties agree is very unusual and perhaps unprecedented step, it is unprecedented. A judge at Chicago's Daly Center has stripped Rebecca Furlet of custody because she refuses to get a... You can read that. Quote, I miss my son more than anything. It's been very difficult. I haven't seen him since August 10th. Furlet told Fox 32 News in an exclusive interview. I feel like people don't understand how important this actually is. Can you imagine if this was commonplace? Well, we're heading there. That's the day Furlet appeared in court via Zoom along with her ex-husband for a child support hearing involving their 11-year-old son. The two have been divorced for 7 years and share custody and parenting time. She says out of the blue, Cook County Judge James Shapiro asked her whether she had been marked. Furlet told Shapiro she had not because she has had bad reactions to these in the past. Shapiro then ordered that Furlet be stripped of all parenting time with her son until she gets V'd. And look at this guy. There he is right there. Oh, you shouldn't be allowed to be a parent unless you get this thing. Over the past 2 weeks, Furlet has been able to talk to her son on the phone and through video calls, but has not seen him in person. That's rather interesting. That's terrible. That's just terrible. Quote, I think that it's wrong. I think that it's dividing families, and I think it's not in my son's best interest to be away from his mother. I'd say these people think that they can, just order when you do anything. In this case, whether you get to see your son. Perlet's now appealing the court order, saying the judge has no business taking away her parenting rights simply because she is not marked. It had nothing to do with what we were talking about. He was placing his views on me and taking my son away from me, Perlet said. Annette Fernholz, Perlet's attorney, says the judge has overstepped his authority. Yes, in a huge way. Quote, in this case, you have a judge without any matter for him regarding the parenting time with the child deciding, oh, you're not V'd. You don't get to see your child until you're V'd. That kind of exceeds his jurisdiction, Fernholz said. And it just goes on about the father, and I just wanted to bring this up really quick to show that if something like this is even to be attempted anywhere in the United States, we are on a very, very, very treacherous path. 100%. Moving on. Here we are over at our good friends, CNBC. U.S. ends 20-year war in Afghanistan with final evacuation flights out of Kabul. Oh, gee, we ended that war? Huh. I could have sworn there's still, a whole bunch of chaos and whatever because we went over there and destabilized it. And what they did this past time was, well, they went over there, they got them all riled up. Of course, they gave them all those weapons and just said, we created you guys, do a job and go do your job. Here's all this new military equipment. And now we're withdrawing from Afghanistan and, quote, ending the 20-year war. This is all leading up to the false flag that's coming. We all know the U.S. doesn't end war. When one ends, another is beginning. And they just need a reason to do it. And they're going to get their reason. They got a bunch of shiny new equipment over there in Afghanistan now. And they even have the audacity to tell you on mainstream media that it's U.S. donated. Oh yeah, they bought this much U.S. military equipment. Oh, they stole some this time. They overran some here. Oh, they bought some there, whatever. People should be more mad than they are about this, but apparently it's all good. According to CNBC, the United States has finished its evacuation efforts from Kabul's airport. The Pentagon said Monday, effectively ending America's longest war. The last C-17 military cargo aircraft departed Hamid Karzai International Airport Monday afternoon. McKenzie said there were no Americans on the last 5 flights out of Kabul. President Biden said he would address the nation Tuesday afternoon. Oh, great. No Americans on the last 5 flights? What? I thought there was a whole bunch of people still over there. And I'm sure there is. And no, here we go. America's longest war is over. The United States finished its withdrawal efforts from Kabul's airport, the Pentagon said Monday, effectively ending a 2-decade conflict that began not long after the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. And we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary. And they're going to say, oh, we ended the war, and this and that, and we feel good about ourselves because we did this, and it's coming. There's going to be an event. You can feel it in the air. And it gets closer and closer. And it feels like it does, too. Don't know what that's going to be yet, but, we just have to keep our eye on that. Among other things, I mean, there's so much going on. This in itself is, this whole Afghanistan thing within itself is a distraction from a much larger issue, of course, which is just the Great Reset in getting everybody to take that shot. Can't lose sight of that. A lot of people have lost sight of that. Never lose sight of that. After the Pentagon's announcement, President Joe Biden, in a statement Monday evening, thanked the American military, said he would address the nation Tuesday afternoon about his decision not to prolong the U.S. mission in Afghanistan beyond August 31st. Quote, the past 17 days have seen our troops execute the largest airlift in U.S. history, evacuating over 120,000 U.S. citizens of our allies and Afghan allies of the United States, the president said in a statement. They have done it with unmatched courage, professionalism, and resolve. Now our 20-year military presence in Afghanistan has ended. Huh. Well, they're probably lying about that. I would assume that they were lying about that. They're making it seem like, oh, it was all just good and it went smooth. No. A lot of people now have the feeling and the idea, because this is the idea that they created in people's heads, that the, well, so-called, terrorists, what they call them, they're armed. Well, the best thing you can call them is a mercenary. They're armed mercenaries. But what the average person would call a terrorist. Well, the average perception now is people think that they're highly pissed off at us. And if you go in some comment sections, you can see that attitude. You can see that attitude, and it's just fueled. But there's a lot of Middle Eastern people in comment sections on our mainstream news, and they are pretty much just calling us out for being murderers and whatnot. And something that happened today, or was it yesterday? I'm going to bring it up, but I think it was today. I'll have to double check, of course. Would prove that, we have been doing that. Okay, in the final week of the withdrawal, terrorists from the group ISIS-K killed 13 U.S. service members and dozens of Afghans in an attack outside the airport. U.S. forces retaliated and launched strikes in a bid to thwart other attacks. Okay, now, what did I say in... It was a video I did like 3 months ago, when they first announced that they were going to be pulling out of Afghanistan. And I was like, oh, it's whenever that was like breaking news. And I was like, nope, because something's going to happen and we're going to go to leave. And, they might say that we left and it's all over, but then something will come, and I've only been reaffirmed in that belief that something is coming. Because also these service members were killed. And yes, I do believe that many people were killed, because there was a young man actually who lives around where I live. He was killed. He was like 19, I believe. He was like 19. Yep, just graduated high school. Yep, but that doesn't mean that there's not any significance to that. U.S. forces retaliated and launched strikes in bid to thwart other attacks. The last C-17 military cargo aircraft departed Hamid Karzai International Airport on Monday afternoon, according to U.S. Marine Corps General Kenneth McKenzie, commander of U.S. Central Command, completing a massive evacuation effort that flew more than 116,000 people out of Afghanistan over the past 2 weeks. Quote, while the military evacuation is complete, the diplomatic mission to ensure additional U.S. citizens and eligible Afghans who want to leave continues, said McKenzie, who oversees the U.S. military mission in the region. Exactly, so it's not over, no matter what they say. As long as there's diplomatic relations and, hostile relations between countries, which there probably will be, that means you're still involved in a war. It's just not physical at the time. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some guy from Ohio that lives right on the river, like one of them there hillbillies. As of early Monday, U.S. and allied forces evacuated 1,200 people out of the Afghan capital on 26 military cargo aircraft flights in a 24-hour period, according to the latest figures from the White House. Since the mass evacuations began on August 14th, approximately 116,700 people have been airlifted out of Afghanistan. About 122,300 people have been evacuated since the end of July, including about 5,500 U.S. citizens and their families. State Department spokesman said Saturday that approximately 250 Americans were still seeking evacuation. That's not cool, because now those 250 Americans are put in a position that was afforded to them by their own government. So that's fun. We were not able to bring any Americans out. The activity probably ended about 12 hours before our exit, although we continued to outreach and would have been prepared to bring them on until the very last minute, but none of them made it to the airport, McKenzie said. Okay, and And they have to go. The 4-star general added that there were no evacuees left the airfield when the last C-17 took off, and confirmed that all U.S. service members and troops from Afghan military force, along with their families, were also airlifted out on Monday. McKenzie said the Taliban did not have direct knowledge of the U.S. military's time of departure, adding that commanders on the ground chose to keep that information very restricted. But they were actually very helpful and useful to us as we closed down operations, McKenzie said of the Taliban. Yeah, I'm sure they were very helpful and useful to us. Yeah, I'm sure they were, because we put them there. We created that. Those are U.S. weapons that they're holding right there. That guy's literally holding an M4A1 carbine. And then we all know that the U.S. began its war in October 2001, weeks after September 11th. The Taliban at the time provided sanctuary to Al-Qaeda, the group that planned and carried out the devastating terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Yeah, that's how we, that's what the official narrative is, of course. We all know that here. And a lot of people still believe that, unfortunately. But they go on about now the Taliban are yet again in power, and the Taliban sees this and that, and they go on about all of that. And we'll read this last paragraph right here, and then we'll just probably get off of this one soon. Despite being vastly outnumbered by the Afghan military, which has long been assisted by U.S. and NATO coalition forces, the Taliban seized the presidential palace in Kabul on August 15th. Do you think that they really would have been able to do that if they weren't allowed to by the controllers? I can just see them sitting there and being like, okay, now let's get the Taliban to go and take over the presidential palace as a sign of, like, control. We'll get everybody all riled up. I can literally see them sitting around their weird tables that they have, because we know they have, like, weird things like that. This is just ridiculous that we even have to deal with this. This should never be something that we should have to deal with, just all of it in general. But generations before us did not do a very good job at, stopping it. And it seems like we're not doing too well either at this point in time. Oh, and this is what the president said following the Taliban takeover. Biden defended his decision to depart the war-torn country. Quote, I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I learned the hard way, and there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. Biden said a day after Afghanistan collapsed to the Taliban. American troops cannot and should not be fighting a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves, Biden said. We gave them every chance to determine their own future. We cannot provide them with the will to fight for that future, he added. That is a bold-faced lie. We know exactly what they were doing over there, making sure that Afghanistan as a country fell into the hands of the New World Order. And that's what they did. Who's in control right now? Apparently the Taliban, who created the Taliban, CIA, who runs the CIA. And you just follow it to a logical conclusion. And they go on about the final casualties and the 13 soldiers again and all of that, but this is all leading up to something bigger, is why I brought this up in the first place. This is all leading up to an event that is going to distract us so much. You will not be able to not pay attention to it. It will be that big, like 9/11 style or something of that nature. And it's coming. Rest assured, and I can assure you, and many others too, they have felt it. It's coming. And just all of this, the murky withdrawal, the declaration of the ending of the war in Afghanistan and all this stuff, that this is all just, and they're going to be able to get the shots in people's arms after this event. They're going to be able to quickly run around and distribute the rest of the shots and push us further into maybe even sealing forever the New World Order system. Well, 42 months. That's all they get. It's 42 months. But yeah, so reason I brought this up, all leading up to something bigger. Let's move on. All right, I wanted to bring this up, of course, because I got to address the hurricane. And I know there's a lot going around, and people are saying that they're doubting the intensity of it and just things of that nature. I don't know exactly. I know that I've seen damage that people took on their own phones that they took themselves, of roofs getting blown off and stuff, so it was pretty bad. I believe that they enhanced this thing just based on what their radar shows. 90-degree angles and straight lines. You guys don't know that stuff. That's elementary. Category 4, Hurricane Ida, after making its 2 landfalls in Louisiana on August 29, 2021. So, it was a biggin. It was a biggin. And think about that. Think about just all of this that I'm about to read. They don't have to do anything else down there. They could just be like, hey, we're here to set up whatever they're setting up. Hurricane Ida has left over 1 million homes and businesses without power, mostly in Louisiana, after making landfall as a powerful Category 4 storm on Sunday. Ida also greatly disrupted Gulf of Mexico and Gulf Coast oil and gas and petrochemical operations, but the full scope of the damage and environmental hazards will take time to assess. The big picture. All of New Orleans lost power last night after Entergy, the utility that serves the city, said the storm's catastrophic intensity knocked transmission offline. Some areas may be without power for weeks, it said. On the oil and gas front, as of Sunday, 97% of Gulf of Mexico oil production and 94% of natural was shut down in advance of the storm, and companies evacuated many workers, per the Interior Department. At least 9 refineries in Louisiana halted or reduced operations in advance of the storm, accounting for 2.3 million barrels per day of capacity, or 13% of the U.S. total, per the Energy Department. Interesting. Colonial Pipeline, the huge eastern U.S. fuel artery, temporarily shut lines that run from Texas to North Carolina as precautionary measure. Now think about this. They're testing how easy it would be for it to shut off, for just all of it. And at the rate things are going, we don't know that these will even come back, that these will even turn back on, because they're trying to get rid of all of this too. What we're watching, the human and environmental toll, but also the market effects as refineries assess the damage and restart timelines. Gasoline futures are trading higher, while gas buddy analyst Patrick D. Hahn estimates that average national gasoline prices will rise in the 5 to 10 cents per gallon range. Yes, but oil prices have not surged despite the outages. It's likely due to several factors, including supplies and storage, and traders are not expecting prolonged offshore production and transportation disruptions despite damage to the regional port infrastructure. The Gulf's share of U.S. oil production has fallen thanks to the shale boom. Also, Delta variant spread is bearish for prices. Okay, so this just goes on about this. Keep going on about the. I never know when these things end. And then it just goes on about the hurricane down here and says an estimated 1 million plus customers were left without power in the state. President Biden approved Louisiana's disaster declaration late Sunday, enabling federal funding for parishes affected by the storm, which will go toward grants for temporary housing and home repairs, low-cost loans to cover uninsured property losses, and other programs. Or they'll just start stuffing everybody into the Superdome again. Oh, we got a couple Walmarts. Got a couple Walmarts down here you guys can come to. Yeah, don't worry. It's only temporary. Oh, yeah. So, obviously, you know, they're still using weather warfare. They have been using weather warfare. They won't stop using it. Pretty sure I just saw a fire started again on the east, or on the west, and Lord knows we're getting flooding out here, that's for sure. So we'll just have to watch all this stuff too. That's all. Moving on. And of course, all of this is... I got this thing to go away the other day. It'll let me read the whole... Oh, whatever. I had it up the other day. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, this is basically the same thing, so we'll go with this. Check this out. HHS unveils office to treat climate change as a health issue. As a public health issue, the Federal Health Department is creating new office to address climate change as a public health issue in an effort to tie growing environmental concerns to the administration's broader health equity agenda. Oh, so now we see where it comes in. Now we see where it comes in. All that stuff going on with the hurricanes, the fires, the flooding, all the increased in frequency and intensity by their own design. They have been manipulating the weather for a long time. Kennedy spoke about it on record. Weather modification. So, did I just accidentally like that? Oh, jeez. Don't want to like that. Almost missed that. The Federal Health Department is creating a new office to address climate change as a public health issue in an effort to tie growing environmental concerns to the administration's broader health equity agenda. So, again, they are tying this with the whole situation that we have going on. If you don't know, I'm not talking to my regular subscribers. If you don't know that this is all just forced, fast-tracked Agenda 2030, New World Government, if you don't know that by now, this late in the game, it is so late in the game. It's like the 2-minute warning of the fourth quarter. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't understand that at this point in time, there's nothing anybody could tell you because all the information has been laid out there for some time. You used to have to go dig it up. You don't really have to do that anymore. The Office of Climate Change and Health Equity will take a wide-ranging approach to evaluating the impact that the warming planet is having on people's health, including initiatives aimed at reducing health providers, carbon emissions, expanding protections to the most vulnerable populations. How'd that work out with protecting the most vulnerable populations with this whole situation? A lot of old people were left to pretty much die. And I could say that because my grandfather passed away in June of 2020. Right in the middle of all this, and that's exactly what happened to him. Senior National Institutes of Health official John Balbus will run the office on an interim basis, with plans to house it within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health. The climate crisis is here, and the Department of Health and Human Services is rising to meet the challenge. HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra said Monday, "We're going to use every tool at our disposal." Now, you know what happened in Ohio last year? Our governor wanted to give our Secretary of Health the entire, well, let's just say that they were going to make gun control and, gun violence a public health issue. A lot of people don't understand if they go this route with the health, which is, I think that's why they did it, medical dictatorship, scientific dictatorship. It's really hard to oppose something like that. Because the mass majority of the population still believes that they're doing this for our health, while we know better. And they're going to use every tool at their disposal, as you can see what that guy said. The added emphasis on climate change comes after Hurricane Ida made landfall in Louisiana, knocking out power to New Orleans and sparking fears that, combined with the ongoing C-19 resurgence, it would leave public health catastrophe in its wake. What did I just say in the last video, or in the last article? That's exactly where they were going with this. Everyone knows it. They're going to make everything a public health issue. And you need to get their new super smart technology, you know, to so you can partake in the Internet of Bodies. That is, I coined their term. That's not my term. That's their term. They just discussed that at the World Economic Forum. So when they had their last whatever. The climate office will be small to start. HHS has requested $3 million from Congress to fund it next year, with plans to draw on existing resources until then. But Becerra insisted it will play a central role in climate-related work across the department, characterizing it as an extension of the work he did as California Attorney General to advance environmental justice. They throw all these terms around, but you really don't, a lot of people don't really grasp this. How would you like to be told that you can only run 2 gallons of water a day? No, 3 gallons of water a day. That's probably what they'd give you. 3 gallons of water a day. Oh, how are we supposed to drink and take a shower? I don't know. Figure it out. We're saving the environment. How am I supposed to drink water? I need more than this to survive a day. I got a big family. I don't care. Figure it out. Got to save the environment. It's all they got to do is just put it in this red. It's all red herring. All of it. All of it. All they have to do is throw a term on it, execute it, and say that they're doing it for your own good. That's what they've always done. That's what it always comes down to, for your own good. HHS officials declined to offer specifics on how the office might rein in health providers' carbon footprint, saying only they're still evaluating the federal government's existing authorities. Quote, all the levers to encourage that would be on the table, said Arsenio Mataka, former environmental advisor to Becerra in California, who is joining HHS as a senior advisor for climate change and health equity, adding that the office could issue new regulations or administrative guidance. Yes, administrative guidance. Becerra later added that HHS would seek to partner with the healthcare industry to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions and build up hospitals' resilience to climate change. We're going to have to try to bring together all the authorities we have under our current jurisdiction to protect the health of Americans, he said. Let's read that again. We're going to have to try to bring together all the authorities we have under our current jurisdiction to protect the health of Americans. That's a mouthful right there. They're going to have to combine all of these different agencies they have under their current jurisdiction to protect the health of Americans. When are people going to say no to this? And then he goes on. I don't think this office is going to go away. The office will become a permanent fixture within the HHS. So this is the route that we're going. This is the route that we're going now. Everything's going to become a public health issue. Everything. That's how they rolled out the mandates. Because of a public health issue. That's how they'll get rid of guns. Treat it as a public health issue. It's for your health. We got to get rid of guns because people, not only are people shooting people, but there's lead in the bullets. You could get cancer if you ate it, and you could die. We got to take all your guns away to protect your health. That's how easy that would be for them to do that, which they will. Why stop there? They could get everything. How long are we going to let this go on before we do something? Moving on. I forgot to bring this one up whenever we were talking about the whole Afghanistan thing, because I wanted to bring it up right after they did the whole, we ended the longest war in Afghanistan, the longest war in U.S. history. Alright, well, try this one out. Go away, pop-ups. I can't have you crashing my thing. Oh no, I'm afraid. I don't know what's going to happen. This video might play now. Please don't. Hold that thought. U.S. drone strike kills 9 members of one family in Afghanistan, reports say. The targeted drone attack came as U.S. officials warned of an imminent threat days after a deadly suicide bomb. A U.S. drone strike killed 9 members of one family, according to local reports. The casualties of the strike in the capital city of Kabul included 6 children, a relative told a local journalist working with CNN. So if they're telling the truth, we just drone struck, whatever you call it, 6 children. And who is the war criminal? This is what our government is doing with our money. They're going and carrying out drone strikes, and they would probably call it collateral damage. I know they would. They probably did. The Pentagon said in a statement earlier that it was assessing the possibilities of civilian casualties, though we have no indications at this time. Good one. The strike followed a huge amount of bloodshed over a 3-day period as the American military finishes evacuating citizens and others with papers ahead of President Joe Biden's 31st August deadline for troop withdrawal. On Thursday, a suicide attack at the airport, where thousands of people are desperately trying to get on flights out of the country before the Taliban resumes complete control, killed 13, again, U.S. service members and about 170 Afghans. The attack was carried out by members of the terrorist group ISIS-K. And the following day, a U.S. drone strike killed 2 high-profile ISIS-K members as a little bit of both. Retaliation and counterterrorism pre-planning, Pentagon spokesman said Saturday. Yeah, so where were the children on the pre-planning? Where were the children? Those are just innocent little babies over there that their blood is now on our hands. Literally. We let them take our money to do that. We are guilty of that. I don't care if anybody even gets mad at that either, because it's the truth. And it should make you mad, but not at me. The next strike on Sunday targeted an imminent ISIS-K threat, officials said. If we can believe them, when have they ever told the truth? U.S. military forces conducted a Are you serious? Conducted a self-defense unmanned over-the-horizon airstrike today on a vehicle in Kabul, eliminating an imminent ISIS-K threat to Hamad Karzai International Airport, U.S. Central Command spokesman Captain Bill Urban said, told CNN. Now, you know how they wrote this article, and they put the part about the children in the first paragraph, and then they go on about all of this, and we're confident we successfully hit the target. Yeah, and they're going on about all these operations they did and all the good things they did, but yeah, we accidentally killed 6 children. So, I'm not over there. I don't know what happened, but something happened. But I just want to bring that up to show that, but this might crash my recording app, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this now. Alright, now this one's a good bit of reading, so this might take us to the end of the video. We'll see what happens, but this, of course, is V mandates and the Great Reset. I don't want to say goodbye to my mortgage if I live near Canton. Go away. I don't live near Canton. Sort of, but not really. Pressure on the unmarked grows. While the marked in some countries are getting back some of their freedoms taken away by the COVID interventions, the unmarked are not so well off. Already 2-tiered. They are being targeted for discrimination. Access to public spaces and traveling is being made more difficult for them. In some countries, there is even mandatory mark for some professions. But why is the mark campaign so important to governments that they are increasing the pressure to such an extent? And who has an interest in the global mark campaign? This might get my video taken down. So you might want to download this video if it even made it this far. To answer these questions, it is necessary to analyze the prevalent mark narrative and ask who benefits from it. In doing so, the alliance of interest between the state, the media, and the pharmaceutical industry, and supranational, not supernational, clear difference, institutions must be addressed. Let us start with the pharmaceutical industry. It has obvious economic interest in the mark campaign. It makes enormous profits from widespread marks. What about the state? In this situation, politicians have systematically amplified fear and hysteria. This was no accident and is unsurprising. For the state builds its raison d'etre. I'm not sure how to say that. Raison d'etre. I do not speak French, so for my French people out there, please tell me what that means. On the argument that it protects the population from internal and external dangers, the state is built upon fear. Literally, that can sum it up. The narrative is that without the help of the state, the citizen would be defenseless against hunger, poverty, accidents, war, terrorism, disease, natural disasters, and pandemics. It is therefore in the state's interest to instill fear of possible dangers, which then pretends to solve, expanding its power in the process. How many times have we seen this? This whole time, 19 months now, just about. A relatively recent example is the restriction of civil liberties here in the U.S. in response to the threat of terrorism after the 9/11 attacks and the Second Iraq War. Similarly, it was in the interest of governments to purposefully instill fear and portray C-19 as a unique killer virus in order to expand state power to an extent unknown in peacetime at the expense of citizens' fundamental rights. Correct. Okay, still going good. When the corona crisis started, not much was known about the virus' potential danger. Politicians were faced with a symmetric payoff. If politicians underestimate danger and do not react, they are held responsible for the underestimation. They lose elections and power, especially if they could be blamed for deaths. Photos of mass burials aside, the consequences of underestimating danger and failing to act are politically fatal. In contrast, overestimating the danger and taking decisive action are potentially much more attractive. If it really is an unprecedented threat, politicians are celebrated for their tough measures such as lockdowns. And politicians can always argue that without their decisive action, there would have been a disaster. If the measures ultimately turn out to have been exaggerated because the hazard was not so great after all, the possible negative consequences of the measures are not as directly associated with the politicians as the photos of mass burials because these consequences are more indirect and long-term. Yeah, but also those mass burials turned out to be what they already have been doing in New York. If nobody claims the family, or it's like someone's homeless and nobody claims, like, you know, as family of that person, then they get buried in state graves. The indirect and long-term health costs of lockdowns include suicides, seen it, depression, seen it, alcoholism, definitely seen it, stress-related illnesses, earlier death from canceled surgeries, screenings, seen it, generally lower standard of living, seeing that now. However, these costs are not directly associated with the drastic interventions and blamed on the policy. Many of these consequences will occur after the next elections or even later, and are not visible. For instance, we cannot observe to what extent a higher standard of living would have increased life expectancy. And if someone dies 6 years from now in alcoholism or depression, developed in the wake of the lockdowns, most people probably will not make the lockdown politicians responsible. And if they do, these politicians will possibly already be out of office. Thus, it's in the interest of the politicians to overestimate a threat and overreact. Yes, but also they did that and they overreacted for the fact that they're all in this together. Big exercise. Didn't Mike Pompeo say that last year? We're in a live exercise here to get this right. And then Trump said they should have let us know. Okay, we're starting to get down to the mark campaigns here. That's what we... And this whole thing is like, you know, writing as if what they're saying is true. Just based on the way that it's written. So, in order to justify and defend the harsh measures, such as lockdowns that are so attractive to politicians, it's necessary to stir up fear. When politicians stoked fear and hysteria during the C-19 crisis, implementing highly restrictive measures such as lockdowns, damage to the economy and social fabric was immense, yet a society cannot be locked down forever, as the costs keep rising. At some point, it must exit lockdown and return to some normality. However, how can one at the same time stir up fear of a threat killer virus and return to normalcy? And then that's where they come in with the way out is getting marked. And they already told us we're never going back to normal. Klaus Schwab wrote in The Great Reset, but this is what they're telling the people. They're telling the people that we're going to go back to normal. All we got to do is get everybody to take this thing. You take this thing, we're going right back to 2019. But in the other breath, they say we're never going back there because the old normal wasn't working. That's why we have a new normal, right? With To the Mark campaign, the state can stage itself as the savior from the great danger. Yep, problem, reaction, solution. State organizes mark for its citizens and gives the marks to the citizens for free. Without this mark rescue and a permanent lockdown, the negative economic and social consequences of restrictions on civil rights would be so great that resentment among the population would continue to grow and ultimately unrest would threaten. So, sooner or later, the lockdown must be ended. If, however, the state authorities were to back out of the lockdowns and restrictions without further explanation and imply that danger was not so great after all, and that restrictions were an exaggeration and a mistake, they would lose a great deal of support and trust among the population. Consequently, from a governmental perspective, a good face-saving exit scenario for the most severe restrictions is needed, and the Mark campaign provides it. And we, of course, know that that's exactly what's happening. And if you don't know already, your job is going to mandate the shot. They will have everybody on this transhumanist system. You will be connected to the internet through the Internet of Bodies. Just like patent WO 2020-060606 says. Everything will be on there. All information about you, your ID, your phone number, if phones even still exist. It can monitor for any changes in your body at all. It can monitor if you're taking a pee or number 2. It can, all of it. Because Satan wants to be as God. He wants to be like God. And we fell for that original lie that we could be like that. So we have, fallen a long way. And the result is this. I think they're coming out with another shot pretty soon, and they're going to say that one is the one that everybody has to get through the use of force, and it's going to be all of it. Everything. But they still want people to get these too, for obvious reasons. Through state-provided mark, the state can continue to hold on to the narrative of great threat and still get out of lockdown. At the same time, it can pass itself off as a savior that's making somewhat more normal. Oh, sorry about that if you're trying to read yourself. I get notifications like that all the time. It can pass itself off as a savior that's making somewhat more normality, possibly through mark. To do this, it's necessary that as large a proportion of the population as possible also get marked. Because only a fraction of the population gets marked, the mark campaign cannot be sold as a necessary step toward opening up. Thus, it's in the state's interest to get a major part of the population marked. If this strategy works, the state will have set a precedent, expanded its power, and also made citizens more... There's a cat running with a rat in its mouth. I get distracted very easily. Citizens will believe the state has rescued them from a mortal predicament, and they will need its help in the future. In return, they will be willing to give up some of their liberties permanently. The announcement that a state-organized annual mark booster is needed will perpetuate the citizens' dependence. And we already know what those things do. The mass media have fallen in line and actively support the narrative. The state and mass media are closely linked. No, they are the same. Framing by the leading media and targeting the population have a long tradition. Already in 1928, Edward Bernays advocated the intelligent manipulation of the masses in his classic book, Propaganda. In modern states, the mass media helped to construct popular approval for political measures such as in the case of C-19. The mass media support of the state is due to several reasons. Some media are directly owned by the state. Others are highly regulated or require state license. Furthermore, media houses are staffed with graduates from state educational institutions. In addition, especially in times of crisis, a good connection to the government offers advantages and privileged access to information. The willingness to carry the state's fear narrative also comes from the fact that negative news and the exaggeration of dangers bring attention. In the corona crisis, the one-sided media coverage that proliferated through social media and muted critical voices contributed to fear and panic and created great psychological stress among the population. Yes, and it's still going on. Everybody is literally insane right now. That's the way that I put it. However, it is not only negative news that's attractive to the media. The narrative of the state rescuing the population from major crisis also sells well. Thus, the marked narrative plays into the hands of the mass media. In reality, it's not that it does sell well, but it also, they're owned and they're paid to push out a certain narrative, as in Operation Mockingbird. They are the state's mouthpiece. In addition to nation states, the media, the pharmaceutical companies, supranational organizations also have an interest in ensuring that the world's population is marked. Supranational organizations are actively pursuing an agenda in which global mark campaigns play an important role. These organizations include the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the EU, International Monetary Fund, World Health Organization, which are closely interconnected. This is your world government right here. There's your world government. It's just not in its full form yet. We're getting there. Some of these organizations have set as their goal a great reset or a great transformation. In the areas of pandemic and climate protection, gender, migration, financial system, these organizations want to find coordinated answers for the benefit of all people worldwide. They emphasize shared responsibility and global solidarity. Central control of marked climate change and financial and migration flows bears hallmarks of a new world order. For example, the theme of the 2019 annual meeting of the World Economic Forum was Globalization 4.0, shaping a new global architecture in the age of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Another example of supranational planning is the UN's Global Compact for Migration. At the national level, these radical ideas are supported, as shown by the German Advisory Council on Global Changes. Well, I'm Rondell, can't read all of that, something transformation. Social contract for a great transformation policy paper. Yes, because they're redoing the entire social contract. It's no longer going to be how it is now. I would say that we probably have at best 6 months left of any semblance of the old world. And I took a look around today and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I've been saying for years that I can't recognize the United States, but I literally can't recognize the United States. I can't. I can't recognize it at all. It is totally gone. Raymond Unger, 2021, page 84, whatever, sees this drive for supranational planning as part of a culture war envisioned by Antonio Gramsci and Herbert Marcuse, a global management of opinion and outrages combined with scenes of fear and horror, especially in the fields of climate change and corona, to establish a new socialist world order. In fact, the World Health Organization, the IMF, and the UN are led by former communists. The World Economic Forum is financed by global companies, including the pharmaceutical industry and the big tech companies. The World Economic Forum, for its part, significantly finances the UN's 2030 agenda. The World Health Organization also is significantly funded by pharmaceutical companies and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which spearheads global mark campaigns. During C-19, the pharmaceutical industry also exerted its influence on the World Health Organization, and the IMF only aided nation states if they complied with WHO recommendations. These interconnected supranational organizations see the C-19 crisis as an opportunity to advance their agendas. The UN policy papers Shared Responsibility, Global Solidarity, Responding to the Socioeconomic Impacts of C-19, views C-19 as a turning point for modern society. The intention is to seize the opportunity and act in a globally coordinated manner The major tech companies support these agendas. They are also members of the World Economic Forum and censor disagreeable information related to C-19 on their platforms, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, just like the mass media. Videos of critical Mark are particularly quickly deleted on YouTube. Oh, we've been down that road a couple times here. They don't want nothing getting out about that. No way. About their graphene oxide. Ooh, that might get my video taken down. Oh well. The title of a keynote speech by IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva, from Great Lockdown to Great Transformation, also underscores the idea that supranational organizations want to use the corona crisis for their agendas. Klaus Schwab, founder at World Economic Forum, argues that the C-19 crisis represents a rare opportunity to lay new foundations for our economic and social systems. In C-19, The Great Reset, co-authored with Thierry Malloret, Schwab speaks of a defining moment and claims a new world will emerge. According to Schwab, it's time for a fundamental reform of capitalism. Oh yeah, capitalism, but they get to where they're going, they close the door behind them, so nobody else can get there. Also fascism, because corporations and government working together to rule the people. It's all of it mixed. All governments mixed into one big government. Thus, the globally coordinated MARC program could be interpreted as a building block to a supranational strategy of a great reset. Well, yeah, because they got to get rid of, what do they want? 90% of the population gone? Global MARC structures are being established that could be used for subsequent global MARC campaigns. From the perspective of advocates of a great reset, World Coordinated C-19 MARC underscores the need for world structures and organizations that can be used for other world purposes, such as effectively combating climate change and pushing for a great reset. In short, the state, media, pharmaceutical industry, supranational organizations are closely intertwined and have common interest in the MARC narrative. Well, yeah, because they don't need us anymore. They could just, get rid of a lot of us. They have AI. So, they can deal with significantly less people. And they will. A lot of people are going to start dropping soon. From this perspective, the mounting pressure on the MARC free is unsurprising. The corrupt establishment will do anything to suppress sites like burning platforms from revealing the truth. The corporate media does this by demonetizing sites like mine, blackballing the site from advertising revenue. If you get value from the site, please keep it running with a donation. Sorry, sir. Hey, what do you know? Looks like that's the end of that one. Please don't crash. I'll try out one more article by this site to determine whether it'd be a good site or not. Let me see if I got something else. I thought that was longer. Alright, here we are at ABC News. Feds warn of alarming rise in reports of fake cards sold and used. Some fraudsters are now promising database hacking along with paper cards. This is what we already said was going to happen. They're going to come on and they're going to go after paper cards and say that they need a digital database with your biometric information and all of that. We already know all of this, but this is, just proof of what we've been saying. We said this was going to happen exactly. Just like we said that people are going to, actually start dropping. They're going to blame it on a variant, which they did. Now they're setting up for COVID-22, which I hope you all saw that video that I did on that. It was like 6 minutes. Which is going to be what they say whenever a lot of people start to die off from what. So, and they're trying to get that $2 billion infrastructure thing passed or whatever. Or the X virus thing passed. So, also take that into consideration. They're going to get their new world order. They're going to get it one way or another. By conquest or consent. It's actually what they said. A burgeoning online market for counterfeit C-19 mark cards is setting off alarm bells for federal health officials, who warn that the demand for fake proof of immunity is on the rise. The Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General tells ABC News exclusively they are receiving increasing reports of individuals creating, purchasing, and using fake C-19 mark cards, warning that the proliferation of sham cards can leave victims' personal identity vulnerable and threaten the nation's hard-fought gains against the virus. Yeah. Quote, we are seeing it be widespread, and part of that is because it's being done across social media and e-commerce, where anybody who might run into it could become a participant in it. Miranda Bennett, HHS OIG Special Agent in charge of healthcare fraud, told ABC News of the rise of reports, it's very concerning. Man, if only we had one place where everything was, and all of our information will be protected forever, and we will be saved. And we'll never have to worry about anything again. The illicit niche industry for forged mark cards is hitting its stride, just as new mark requirements are rapidly being implemented at the federal, state, and local levels in both the public and private sectors, requiring proof of inoculation in order to work at a hospital, teach or attend school, work out of the gym, or eat inside a restaurant. Yet, despite new policies, FDA's full approval this month of Pfizer C-19 mark lie, some hesitant Americans still refuse to be marked. For good reason. I am never, ever, 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 ever taking that shot. Never, ever, 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 ever. Ever. I will be perfectly happy living out in the woods, growing a beard, eating night crawlers and bugs and leaves and stuff, and I will be totally fine with that. Because there's no way that I'm picking up what they're putting down. Not interested. For enterprising fraudsters, the French demand presents a ripe opportunity, and experts say it's not just about offering fake paper cards anymore. At the end of July, we saw a spike in new services where they're actually offering the hacking of databases, along with the cards themselves, said Saud Khalifa, executive of Fake Spot, a company specializing in targeting online fraud. These fraudsters know what they're doing. They see trends, and they jump on them. Experts say that some of it's happening in plain sight, rather than... Geez, I can't believe this. I wouldn't doubt if they paid these people to go out and start doing this. And experts say some of it's happening in plain sight, rather than remaining relegated to the web's dark recesses. Fraudsters are staking out public accessible domains. This is something we've never seen before, Khalifa said. We've seen it in the dark web, we've seen it in Mr. Robot, said Khalifa, referencing the popular TV hacker drama, but we've never seen it broadly offered to the general public like it is right now. While prices for fake cards typically ranges from $50 to $200, some cards have been spotted selling for as much as $750. One site selling fakes promises database registered CDC NHS-C mark cards, complete with sophisticated anti-counterfeit technology to ensure authenticity and peace of mind. Another site touts their access to different databases to get cards registered. Now think about this. They can also use this to get rid of dollars, get rid of, just that system in general. They could say, oh, well, there's too much fraud. There's a lot of things that they can do that they're doing. And I still have people telling me, to this day, Austin, they can't do that. Austin, they can't mandate the shot where you work. Look what they're doing now. Austin, they can't mandate the shot to the general public. They're going to. They've done a lot of things the past 19 months that they're not allowed to do, that they're not supposed to do, that they, quote, can't do. They can do whatever they want, as long as we let them. Yet another site offers a special discount on family deals for the cards. Experts say they're concerned about scammers who falsely offer to infiltrate databases in order to exploit victims' personal information through identity theft. But if fraudsters can deliver on the promise of successfully inputting accurate medical information to protect databases, it's an even larger security concern. Basically just goes on about that. And here we go. Federal law enforcement and health agencies warn that those who falsely purport to be protected from the virus risk exposing themselves and others to the virus. In a joint alert issued this spring, 47 state attorney generals warned the CEOs of Twitter, eBay, and Shopify. I've only ever heard of Spotify, never heard of Shopify. Not to harbor these illicit sales on their platforms. Let's see. Oh, and look down here. To combat the C-19 scams, HHS partnered with agencies across various sectors of government, including the FBI, Medicaid, Fraud Control Union, State Attorneys General, International Law Enforcement. Since marked card fraud can have an international impact. In the future, your vaccine card may be required for flying, attending classes, or doing business through your employer, says one website selling fake cards. The paper cards may be the only ticket to access those platforms. This is all just disgusting. This is all just disgusting, this whole entire propaganda campaign. But I'm actually going to end it right there because my phone is dying and I'm running out of time. So, let's pray. We'll go again tomorrow. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and glory forever and ever. Amen.